They handed him a broken alien woman, but what he did next shocked the galaxy. The hall was silent when the human commander walked in. His boots echoed on the metallic floor, each step carrying the weight of battles fought and victories earned. Soldiers and diplomats from different species stood on both sides watching him. His name was Marcus Hale, and the galaxy called him the survivor of a war that should have ended him long ago. He had faced machines, storms, and armies that crushed entire worlds. Yet here he was, alive, standing taller than ever. And today the Alien Council had promised him a reward. He did not care for rewards. He cared for his men who had been lost, for the scars on his body that still burned at night, and for the emptiness that victory never filled. But he stood there strong, because that was who he was. At the center of the hall, the council waited. Tall beings with shining skin and sharp eyes, they whispered to each other in voices like steel. And then, without a speech, without a smile, they brought it out. A small figure covered in thin silver cloth moving slowly as if she could fall at any moment. She was not a soldier. She was not a trophy of war. She was a woman, alien, fragile, and silent. The council spoke in cold tones. "This is our gift." She was abandoned, broken, useless to us. "Perhaps she will serve you better." Murmurs filled the room. Some laughed quietly, some shook their heads. Marcus looked at her. Her skin was pale with a faint glow, her eyes large but empty. Staring at nothing, she did not speak. She did not fight. She only stood, trembling slightly as if the air itself was too heavy for her. Marcus's jaw tightened. He had expected weapons, land, or something grand. Instead, they had given him a living being who looked like she had already been discarded by her own people. To the council, she was less than nothing. To Marcus, she was something he did not yet understand. He walked closer. The crowd went quiet. When he stopped in front of her, he lowered his voice and said only one word. "Why?" The council answered without emotion. "Because no one else wants her. She is a failed design. She cannot fight, cannot speak, cannot follow orders. She is silence itself. Consider her a symbol of your victory." The woman did not look up. Her head remained bowed. Her hands were thin and weak as though they had never held strength. Marcus studied her face, and in that silence he saw something no one else noticed. Pain. Fear. A spark buried deep inside, waiting for someone to see it. The others whispered, "She is cursed. She will never wake. The human will regret this." Marcus ignored them. He had lived long enough to know that the galaxy often threw away what it did not understand. He had been thrown away once too, abandoned on a battlefield with only his will to survive. He knew the look of someone who had been discarded, and he knew what it meant to be given a second chance. He turned back to the council. "If this is your gift, then I will take it. But do not mistake me for a man who collects prizes. She will not be my slave. She will walk beside me." The council did not reply. Their eyes narrowed, and their silence was sharper than words. Marcus reached out his hand, slow and steady. For a long moment, the woman did not move. Then barely, her fingers lifted and touched his. Cold, fragile, but alive. The hall trembled with whispers again. Some were shocked, some were amused. But in that moment, Marcus knew something was wrong. The council wanted him to have her not because she was useless, but because she carried a secret they feared. They were watching him too closely as he led her out of the hall. Her steps weak but following, the air grew heavy. He felt eyes on his back, sharp as knives. He did not know her name. He did not know why they had given her to him. But he knew this. Silence was never empty. Silence always hid something. When the door closed behind them, the woman finally lifted her face. For the first time, her eyes met his. They were not empty. They were not broken. They were deep pools of sorrow and something else. Something dangerous. Marcus felt a chill run through him. He did not speak. He only walked with her through the dim corridors, feeling the weight of destiny pressing on both of them. Somewhere inside that broken shell, a storm was waiting, and the galaxy had just placed it in his hands. The station lights flickered as Marcus led the alien woman through long, echoing corridors. People stopped to stare. Soldiers saluted him, but their eyes always drifted to her. Some sneered, others whispered behind their hands. She walked quietly, her steps small and unsteady, as though she was learning how to move all over again. Her silence followed them like a shadow. Marcus took her to his quarters, a room far smaller than the battlefield tents he once commanded. He poured a glass of water and placed it before her. She sat on the edge of the bed, unmoving, her hands folded tightly. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, as if she was afraid of the space around her. "You are safe here," Marcus said. His voice was calm, the same voice he once used to settle frightened recruits before battle. She did not answer. She did not even blink. Hours passed. Marcus worked at his desk, reviewing reports, but he kept looking at her. She had not touched the water. She had not spoken a word. Finally, he stood, walked over, and crouched in front of her. "Do you understand me?" Her eyes lifted slightly. For a second, their glow caught the dim light. She gave no words, but Marcus felt as though something deep inside her was struggling to break free. He placed his hand gently on the table beside the glass and repeated, "Water." He raised the glass to his lips, drank, and set it down. Then he pushed it toward her. She hesitated. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, touched it, and finally raised it to her mouth. The water spilled slightly, but she drank. It was a simple act. Yet it was the first time she had moved by her own choice. Marcus leaned back. "Good." The next day, the rumors began. Soldiers in the mess hall whispered, "The human keeps her in his room." Others laughed, saying, "She will never speak. She is a ghost." Some warned him, "You should not keep her close. The council did not give her as a gift. They gave her as a curse." Marcus ignored them. He had fought enemies with claws and cannons. Words were lighter than dust. That night he tried again. He pointed to the light above them. "Light." He touched his chest. "Marcus." Then he looked at her, waiting. She said nothing. He tried again. "Light." "Marcus." At last her lips parted. No sound came out at first, but then a faint whisper escaped. "Marcus." Marcus froze. Her voice was soft, broken like glass, but it was a voice. The next morning, she spoke another word. When he pointed to the door, she whispered, "Door." When he placed food before her, she whispered, "Food." Small sparks of life, each one brighter than the last. But outside his quarters, shadows moved. Agents from different species filed reports, watching closely. "She speaks," one said. "It has begun." One evening, a stranger came to Marcus, a thin alien dressed in gray robes, his face hidden by a hood. He waited in the dark corner of the corridor until Marcus passed. Then he whispered, "Leave her." Marcus stopped. "What?" The stranger leaned closer, his voice sharp and urgent. "Before she wakes, leave her." Before Marcus could ask, the stranger was gone, swallowed by the crowd. When Marcus returned to his quarters, the woman was sitting near the window, looking out into the stars. Her face was calm, but her fingers traced the glass with slow, careful movements. He walked toward her. "What do you see?" For the first time she answered without his prompting. Her whisper carried weight. "Safe." Marcus felt the word strike deep in his chest. She was beginning to choose words on her own. He sat beside her, watching the stars with her. The silence between them was no longer empty. It carried a rhythm like the first notes of a song waiting to be played. Yet the warning haunted him. Before she wakes. What did it mean? That night, Marcus dreamed of fire. He dreamed of her eyes, glowing brighter, her voice rising louder, and an army falling to its knees before her. He woke with sweat on his brow and the sound of alarms in the distance. The woman was standing in the middle of the room, her hands raised, her eyes faintly glowing in the dark. She was not asleep. She was awake. And Marcus realized something terrifying. The council had not given him a broken woman. They had given him a key. The alarms faded, but Marcus's heart did not slow. He stared at the woman in the dim light of his quarters. Her eyes glowed faintly, not bright enough to blind, but enough to send a chill through him. She stood still, her thin arms raised slightly as if holding invisible weight. The glass of the window trembled under her fingers, though she was not touching it anymore. "Stop," Marcus said softly. At once, her hands dropped. The glow in her eyes dimmed to almost nothing. She looked at him like a child caught breaking something precious. Then she whispered a single word. "Sorry." Marcus stepped closer, his voice firm but calm. "What did you do?" She shook her head slowly. She did not know. Or maybe she did, but could not explain. Her body trembled as though energy still moved through her. Marcus guided her back to the bed, and she sat down like a soldier following an order. The next morning, the council sent a message. They congratulated Marcus again, but the words were laced with hidden edges. They asked almost too casually how the gift was adjusting. Marcus read the message twice, then deleted it without answering. He knew they were watching. The woman, however, began to change. She still spoke little, but now her words came without prompting. When Marcus placed food, she whispered, "Eat." When he returned from duty, she said, "Home." Once, when a soldier glared at her in the corridor, she hid behind Marcus and whispered, "Afraid." Each word was simple, but each was powerful. She was learning. More than that, she was remembering. One evening, Marcus found her tracing strange symbols on the metal floor with her finger. The shapes glowed faintly before fading. He crouched down and touched the floor where the last mark was disappearing. "What is this?" he asked. Her lips moved. "Before." The word struck him. Before. Marcus realized she was not just learning human words. She was reaching back into something older, something buried inside her. The warning from the hooded stranger echoed again in his mind. Before she wakes, the following days were heavy with tension. Soldiers who once only whispered now avoided Marcus altogether. Some even saluted less, as though afraid of what followed him everywhere now. He noticed figures in the shadows, spies and watchers who seemed too curious. And one night, when he returned to his quarters, he found a note slipped under the door. It held only 3 words. "She remembers you." Marcus stared at the note for a long time. It made no sense. He had never seen her before the council gave her to him. Yet the thought stayed with him like an old scar that ached before rain. That night he asked her gently, "Do you know me?" The woman looked at him. Her eyes glowed faintly again, and for a moment Marcus swore he saw recognition. Her whisper was soft, almost painful. "Safe, always safe," the words shook him. He had no answer. He only sat beside her in silence, the stars watching them through the window. Days passed, and the sparks of her awakening grew brighter. Once, when a falling crate in the hangar nearly crushed a worker, she raised her hand without thinking. The crate stopped in the air, hung for a heartbeat, then dropped safely to the ground. Everyone froze. Gasps filled the room, and then whispers began. "She has power. She was never broken. She is waking." Marcus pulled her away before anyone could approach. He held her hand firmly as soldiers stared with fear and suspicion. She did not resist. She walked beside him, whispering one word again and again under her breath. "Safe, safe, safe." That night Marcus confronted her. "What are you?" Her eyes flickered with light. Her voice trembled as she spoke slowly, each word heavy. "Weapon, but not want. Not anymore." Marcus's chest tightened. A weapon, of course. That was why the council had abandoned her. That was why they gave her away. She was not a gift. She was a burden. And now, with him, she was waking. He should have been afraid. Any soldier would have been. But instead, Marcus felt something else, a spark of defiance. The council had thrown her away like garbage. He would not. Still, the danger was growing. He knew it every time he walked the halls and saw the way eyes followed them. He knew it when messages arrived filled with hidden threats. He knew it when the note whispered back from his desk drawer. "She remembers you." One night, as they sat by the window again, Marcus asked, "What do you remember?" The woman closed her eyes. Her hands clenched. When she opened them again, light poured out brighter than ever. Her whisper carried fear and strength. Fire, blood, your face. Marcus felt his breath catch. She had seen him before, not now. Not when she was given to him, long ago, in the fire of war. The silence between them was heavy, filled with truths neither of them yet understood. But one thing was clear. She was no longer broken. She was awakening, and the galaxy would not forgive either of them for it. The awakening did not stay a secret for long. The moment she stopped the falling crate in the hangar, whispers spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Within hours, reports traveled across systems. By the next morning, Marcus noticed eyes that lingered too long, doors that closed as he passed, and sudden silences when he entered rooms. The woman, once ignored, was now the center of every gaze. To most, she was no longer a broken prize. She was dangerous. Marcus knew it would not be long before someone tried to take her away. He had seen that look before. The greedy hunger of officials, the quiet fear of soldiers, the curiosity of scientists who saw people not as lives but as tools. He had been on enough battlefields to know what happened to things the galaxy wanted. They were captured. They were dissected. They were destroyed. He began to move differently. He kept her close at all times. He stopped eating in the mess hall and ordered meals to his quarters. He took longer routes through corridors, staying clear of crowded areas. But no matter what he did, he could feel the eyes. Always watching. Always waiting. One night, as he and the woman walked down the docking bay, the sound of footsteps followed them. Slow, measured, too close. Marcus turned quickly, his hand on the sidearm at his hip. 3 figures stood at the end of the corridor. Tall armed, their armor marked with the crest of the council. "You cannot keep her," one said. "She does not belong to you." Marcus's voice was calm but hard. "She does not belong to anyone." The soldiers stepped forward. The woman pressed close to Marcus, her hands trembling. For a moment, Marcus thought she would hide. But then her eyes glowed faintly, and the air between them and the soldiers seemed to thicken. The soldiers hesitated. One muttered, "It has already begun." Marcus did not wait. He pushed her gently behind him and moved fast, taking the back route through the hangar. They escaped before the soldiers could act. But Marcus knew this was only the first attempt. In the following days, pursuit tightened. Ships trailed theirs when they left orbit. Strange signals filled the comms, coded messages Marcus could not break. In the shadows of the station, hooded figures watched silently. Yet through it all, the woman grew stronger. She spoke more words. She learned quickly. Once, when the station's systems failed, she touched a broken panel and the lights flickered back to life. Once, when Marcus staggered from an old wound reopening, she placed her hand on his chest and the pain eased for the first time in years. Every act of power drew them closer. Every act of power made the galaxy more afraid. Late one evening, Marcus received another note. No signature, no name, only 4 words this time. "She was made for you." He sat in silence, the paper shaking in his hand. He had never asked for her. He had never known her before. But the note pressed against his thoughts like a blade. He remembered the way she whispered "safe" the first time she looked at him. He remembered her saying "your face" when she spoke of fire and blood. Was it possible she was tied to him before this? Was it possible the council had not chosen at random? That night, soldiers came again. But this time they did not speak. They stormed his quarters with weapons drawn. Marcus fought like the commander he was, fast and brutal. 2 fell, 1 fled. The woman stood frozen in the corner until Marcus was struck down by a blow to his ribs. Then her eyes blazed. The walls trembled. The soldiers' weapons bent like they were made of cloth. A wave of unseen force pushed them back, slamming them against the metal until they fell unconscious. Marcus pulled himself to his feet, his chest burning. He looked at her. Her hands still glowed, her breath fast, her face filled with terror at what she had done. "You saved me," Marcus said, his voice rough. Her whisper trembled. "I hurt them." Marcus shook his head. "You protected us." That is not the same. But deep inside, he knew the danger was greater than ever. If the council had feared her before, now they would stop at nothing. She was no longer hidden. She was a storm walking in silence, and he was the only one she trusted. The next morning, Marcus made a choice. He gathered supplies, prepared a small ship, and led her aboard. She followed without question, her eyes watching him with the same wordless trust she had always shown. As the engines roared and the ship lifted from the dock, Marcus looked out at the stars ahead. Pursuit would come, he knew it, but he would not surrender her. Not to the council, not to the soldiers, not to anyone. She sat beside him, her hand brushing his. A whisper left her lips. Together, Marcus nodded. Together. Behind them, alarms echoed across the station. Fleets would follow, armies would hunt. But Marcus Hale had already survived the impossible, and now he had something far stronger than any weapon. He had her. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The stars stretched endless before them as Marcus guided the small ship through the dark lanes of space. Every jump carried them farther from the station, but no distance was safe enough. The woman sat beside him, silent but awake, her eyes watching the endless void as though she understood something hidden within it. Pursuit began on the second day. A patrol ship appeared on the scanner, its signal marked with the Council's crest. Marcus changed course sharply, diving into asteroid fields and debris clouds. The ship followed for hours before he lost it in the shadow of a dying moon. He thought they were safe, but the next day brought more. 3 ships this time, and then 6. It was not simple pursuit anymore. It was a hunt. Marcus knew he could not run forever. He studied maps, searching for places the Council's reach was weak. The woman leaned close, her voice a whisper. Home. He looked at her. Where? She placed her thin hand on the map's glowing surface. Her finger pressed against a forgotten system, one Marcus had passed long ago during war. The system was dead, nothing but ruins of old colonies and shattered stations. Yet her voice was steady. There, Marcus trusted her. He always had. When they arrived, the system was quiet. Silence stretched across broken planets and drifting metal husks. Marcus landed the ship on the remains of an ancient station, its halls dark and filled with dust. The woman walked slowly through it, her hand brushing the walls like someone remembering a long-lost home. She stopped at a wide chamber. The walls were scarred with strange marks, glowing faintly when her fingers touched them. She whispered one word. Before. Marcus realized this was not chance. This place had once been hers. A birthplace, or perhaps a prison. But before he could question her, alarms screamed. The scanner lit with dozens of signals. Council fleets had arrived. Marcus rushed back to the control room. The black of space outside filled with warships, their weapons locked. The Council's voice came through the comms, cold and commanding. Human, return the weapon to us. You cannot keep her. Marcus looked at her. She stood in the doorway, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. For the first time, she did not look afraid. She looked certain. He spoke into the comm. She's not your weapon. She is not broken. She chooses her own path now. The Council's voice sharpened. You have no choice. If you resist, you die. Marcus's jaw clenched. Then we die standing. The fleets moved closer. Weapons charged, their lights flooding the ruins with deadly glow. Marcus stood ready, his hand on his blaster, though he knew it was useless against fleets. But the woman stepped forward. Her voice, once a broken whisper, now rang clear. No. The air in the chamber shifted. The walls hummed with power. Symbols across the floor and ceiling lit up, responding to her presence. Energy gathered around her, swirling like a storm of light. Marcus shielded his eyes, but he did not step back. The fleets outside opened fire. Blinding beams tore through space, racing toward the ruins. But before they struck, the woman raised her hands. The weapons bent in the air like streams of water, their energy dissolving into harmless sparks that fell across the broken station like rain. Gasps and shouts filled the comms. Commanders demanded explanations. Scientists cried in disbelief. Soldiers muttered prayers. The woman floated slightly above the floor now, her voice echoing with strength. I was made to destroy, but I choose to protect. Her light spread outward, wrapping around the entire ruin like a shield. The fleets fired again and again, but nothing pierced her barrier. Each shot dissolved into silence. Marcus watched her, his chest heavy with awe. The broken, silent woman he had been handed as a discarded prize now stood as a force the galaxy could not match. And yet her eyes, glowing bright, turned only to him. She whispered one word, softer now but filled with meaning. Safe. The fleets outside wavered. Fear spread faster than their weapons. Ships pulled back, captains unwilling to fight what they could not understand. And then silence filled the comms. The Council gave no more orders. For the first time, Marcus saw something impossible. Entire fleets retreating from one woman. He stood beside her as her light dimmed slowly, her feet touching the floor again. She looked at him, tired but alive. He caught her before she could fall. You changed everything, Marcus said quietly. Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Soldiers spoke of a human who refused to give up what others called broken. Civilians whispered of a woman who turned away from her fate as a weapon. Fleets carried the tale of fire turned into light. But what shocked the galaxy most was not her power. It was the bond between her and the human who chose to see her not as a weapon, not as a curse, but as something worth saving. The council tried to bury the story, but it was too late. Whispers traveled faster than their lies, and with every telling, the same question echoed across systems. If one human could do this, change the fate of a weapon, alter the course of fleets, what else were humans capable of? Marcus did not care about what the galaxy thought. He only cared about the woman now resting against him. No longer silent, no longer broken. She had chosen him and he had chosen her. Together they had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same again.